6 members join.
So meeting is online, sir, now. Your class is recorded and everybody will not miss your session. Wonderful session. So let's begin.
Wow! It's wonderful, Kesha. Hmm? You are praising me.
Sir, actually, you asked to
Huh? Are you
explain.
praising me?
No, sir, actually, I'm complimenting.
Good. It's very nice. Thank you. So that I can concentrate more also. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
That is the indication. Then Neelama is there. Then somebody is also connecting. Evelyn is also there. Bhaskar is also there. There are about only, 8 members out of 400 members. Wow, you are on the screen now. Good. Yeah. So very nice that yesterday we had very good discussion with regard to what? Methods of collecting data. Methods of collecting data, in that we have discussed the observation method. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
So observation method, that was one of the methods we try to use for data collection. We try to use for data collection, and it's very important method which can be used in psychological issues, especially the classrooms, how they behave, how the teacher behaves, how the students are behaving. I think you have also given a very good example yesterday, isn't it? The classroom dynamics, and then participant observation and non-participant observation. Participant observation means the observer or the researcher should be sitting in the classroom along with the students, and they should not feel that he is observing their behavior. Once they feel that this gentleman is recording the hyper, say, what shall we say, the classroom interaction or the acts or behavior of the students, I think they try to hide. They will not come up with their natural behavior. Am I right? So that is one of the disadvantages of this participant observation. But participant observation gives a scope for very critical kind of observations. Very, very critical observations are possible when you are sitting with them and that they are noticing that you are observing. If they don't notice, then it will be okay. Sorry. Once they notice that this gentleman, yes, is observing the behavior, then automatically they try to control themselves, isn't it? That's the natural, not the natural behavior. So these are the disadvantages of this participant observation. In that case, what we do is, then we try to have this non-participant observation. Nowadays, it's very easy, isn't it? You have gadgets, you have CC cameras, am I right? CC cameras means sitting somewhere, then you will be observing what is happening in the classrooms. And I have seen some of the schools, including my school, is having the CC cameras. What is happening in the classrooms, all those things will be seen on the monitor. Then, of course, all these observations will help to strengthen the system. If anything goes wrong, then they try to check it out. Hmm? So I think that's meant for that purpose. So I think non-participant observation can also be done. How the students are behaving in the classrooms, or is there any, how the interaction is going between the teacher and the students, and is there any cooperative kind of thing, or otherwise what is their initial kind of behavior, like that. All these things can also be observed even by sitting outside the classroom. If you do not have CC cameras and other things, now the advantage of the technology is that you can also observe the behavior sitting pretty well quite away from the classrooms, and then you can take the class to the teacher. Also, you warn the students if the behavior is not desirable, it's not acceptable behavior. So I think that is the most of the cases. I think this is one of the important methods that we can use for studying the behavior of the people or the individuals. Then the limitation of this again, non-personal observation is non-personal observation the behavior of the person being observed and the setting do not remain a natural one. The setting may not be natural. The persons develop the consciousness that their behaviors are being observed. If they are conscious about the person who is observing, so this consciousness slightly distorts the natural flow of their behavior. And I was observing, of course, sitting pretty well in one of the parks. Normally, we take walk in the evenings. Then the students from different schools will be coming for playing cricket and other things, even though they are warned number of times not to play cricket here in this park because it's meant for walking purpose, not for playing cricket. And all those fellows are nearly 20 in number, using very liberally the worst language, the vulgar language, the forbidden language, and what is not seen in the schools. It's one of the tragedies that I have ever observed, that in cities, the students are very liberally, very liberally using that vulgar language. I told them very clear, hereafter anybody uses that kind of first language, you will be sent out and everything will be videographed and that should be played in the classrooms or in the schools before your parents also. That's what I cautioned those fellows. నేను ఏం చేసినానంటే వాళ్ళకి ఏం చెప్పాను, ఎవరైతే చెడు పదాలు ఉపయోగిస్తారో, పదప్రయోగం చేస్తే, చెడు పదప్రయోగం చేస్తే మొత్తం వీడియో రికార్డ్ చేసి వీడియోగ్రఫీ చేసి దాన్ని తీసుకుపోయి మీ స్కూల్లో టీచర్స్ ముందు, పిల్లల ముందు, తర్వాత మీ పేరెంట్స్ని పిలిపించి అందరిని కూర్చోబెట్టి దెన్ ఐ విల్ ప్లే దట్ వీడియో. Quite natural, and these people quite naturally, very liberally, even though we are sitting there, they think that we are not observing. They did not notice that I am observing their behavior. So very liberally coming, because I do not know what is happening in their houses or the homes, how the parents are, treating them also, I do not know, including the teachers. That is kind of thing. If you notice such kind of behaviors, they try to hide it. It cannot be a free flow of their behavior. If they notice that you are observing their behavior, it cannot be a free flow. They try to control themselves. But that is one of the limitations or weaknesses of this non-participant observation or even participant observation too. Difference between participant observation and non-participant observation is that participant and non-participant observations are two different forms of observation. Although both participant observation and non-participant observation are done in natural settings, in the former, the observer or investigator actively participate in the activities of the group of persons being observed, whereas the latter, such active participation does not occur. This is the only difference. He will participate. The researcher or the observer will participate in all the activities that are conducted in the classroom situation because he is one among them. He is sitting with them. But when it comes to non-participant observation, there he is not with them. He has to observe from the outside of the classroom. Then he is not directly participating in the activities of the classroom. That's the only difference between these things. And also, the other difference is that participant observation will give you the clear picture. If they do not notice that you are observing, that will give you the clear picture of the behavior of the students, isn't it? Very clearly you can observe, you can also participate, still you can try to understand more about their behavior. But that may not happen with regard to non-participant observation. So this is all about the observation technique that or the method that you can use for data collection. This is the data.
Sir, but participant observation is not structured, no, sir.
So whatever that is happening in the classroom, that they will observe.
It is not structured. It is just what is happening. Then unstructured.
Mostly the classroom is a structured class. Am I right? Everything is structured.
But the observation cannot be in step by structure.
No. Okay, it may not be there, but actually the classroom itself indicates that is structured. This is the room. This is the teacher. This is the subject. These are the activities. All these things are supposed to be structured and a structured kind of thing. Even in this particular structured kind of setting, how they behave in that particular structure, that will be observed very cleanly, very detailed fashion when he is one among the participants. Whenever we talk about the school, that is a structured school, Mrs. Usasri,
Yes, sir.
the
But
curriculum is structured, the curriculum is structured, the teacher is fixed, the subject is fixed, the time is fixed, and everything is fixed. But
then what about non-participant observations, sir? Means like,
non-participant observation also, because outside is when he is not there in the classroom or with them, when the when the observer is not sitting with them,
mm.
how they behave, that he can observe from the outside only.
So
Then
it
you can
will be
also
a
compare.
structured observation or
Yeah,
unstructured, sir?
that is
Both
maybe
are structured.
structured. Yeah, yeah, structured, but he is one among them, very near to the students, isn't it?
Okay.
In the participant observation, he is one among them. But whereas non-participant observation, the observer is not with them, he is outside. Nobody knows that this fellow is what he is doing. Classroom situation is okay, structured one. With all these structures, how they are behaving in the structures, whether they are participating or not participating, that is our concern. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
So that has to be recorded by the observer. You may not observe all these things when you are outside the classroom. Am I right or wrong? People will also pretend as if they are writing, as if they are taking down, as if they are participating. Am I right? There
Yes,
would
sir.
be so much of drama and natana in the classrooms also. I think you are also a teacher, you know pretty well. Huh? I pretend as if I am doing. Certainly I am not doing. Right or wrong?
My
Non-participant
students are good,
example,
sir.
CC
Sir.
cameras are there.
Yeah, Nageshwara sir. Yeah, sir. Sir.
CC cameras can be quoted as a non-participant.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. Non-participant observation, your CC cameras, those gadgets can be used for observing the behavior of the students or the teachers in the classroom. That is also non-participant observation because you are not participating in the actual setting. Am I right, sir? Nice, Rosap.
Yes, sir.
So non-participant observation can also be done using the gadgets. That will become very easy also nowadays. And most of the schools are using these CC cameras. They are in front of the director or the chairperson. He will be observing the behavior of the students in the classrooms also, how the teacher is also uh, handling the classes. So all these things can also be observed by the observer using these CC cameras or CCTVs. Okay. So I think you can use that facility. And nowadays, we can also use that kind of facility so that that would be easy for us also, so that you cannot stand outside the classroom. You can sit pretty well in the separate room where the CC cameras are arranged. There you can see the monitors, and then try to come to some kind of conclusion whether any correction is required. You can do it later. So that is all about a non-participant observation. And then we are moving a very important method of collecting data, that is interview. This is a highly explored kind of method. Am I right? Nowadays, all these YouTubes, highly exposed and highly utilized kind of method. Nowadays, this YouTubes, every Dick and Tom nowadays, they are talking about many things in the YouTubes. Why Jagan fall like this? Why he got only 11 seats? And what are the reasons? And what are the factor of so and so on this? There will be so much of discussion in the TVs also. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
This is a highly exposed kind of method for getting information from the people. So now this interview is probably man's oldest and the most often used device for obtaining information. This is the oldest method through which we can collect the information from the people. Am I right or wrong? One way or other, there would be some kind of interview. If you want to know information from somebody which you do not know, then you ask him, what is this? Could you please explain? That is also one of the, the interview modes. The moment we born, the moment we got to know about the communication, then started questioning, then started trying to understand various things through discussions or interviews, then also collect information from those people who are concerned with. If you do not know about that, if you want to elicit that kind of information, then this is the method that you can use. This can also be used for your research purposes. But in the large scale researches, this may not be a good tool. In the large scales, is it possible to interview all the candidates if the size of the sample is about 400 or 200? Is it okay, my dear friends? So if the large size of the sample to be interviewed means it would be very, very difficult, isn't it? It will take days together. So that's the reason why normally in big studies or the large scale studies, you are not going to use this interview as one of the methods of research for collecting data. But is one-to-one, it's okay. It's about 45 minutes, it's okay. So therefore, this is one of the oldest and most often used device for obtaining information. It has important qualities that objective tests and scales and behavior observations do not have. It has important qualities that objective tests and scales. These things will not be used during the time of interview. So you cannot use all these devices such as tests. We are not going to test, isn't it? So such kind of tests would not be there. Similarly, the scales through which you are going to collect the data would not be there in the interview method. So interviews can say, of course, can also be categorized into two. One is structured interview, the other one is unstructured interview. Everything is structured. Structured interview may be defined as a prepared questions are asked in a set order by the interviewer and answers are recorded in a standardized form. So therefore, the set of questions would be there with the interviewer. Then he seeks the replies or the answers from the interviewee. Then all those things will be recorded. So what are the interaction that took place between these two, interviewer and interviewee, on a particular topic using so many questions, that will be recorded. That is structured. That is structured. So therefore, the structured interview is a systematic procedure for collecting information regarding the respondents. So interviewee is the respondent. Interviewer is one who conducts the interview. Okay, na? Employer and employee. Interviewer and interviewee. In other words, we can also call it as respondents. The interview situation is highly structured. The questions, their sequence, and scoring methods are all predetermined. Relatively less trained interviewers can also conduct such an interview smoothly. Less trained interviewers can also. That is what happening nowadays. Do you think all these people who are interviewing are trained in the art of interview? No. Am I right or wrong? Any Tom and Dick will come, then he will ask so many questions. Of course, he may write so many questions, otherwise he cannot, all of a sudden he cannot put a question also to the interviewee. So I think he will write all the questions on a paper, then put it in front of him. Then one by one he will be asking, or she will be asking. So any not that much trained person can also conduct the interview to elicit information. But if it's a trained person, how to conduct the interviews, he's a better person who collects information very systematically and in different ways. He tries to get that information by putting the question in different forms. isn't it? So whatever that is lying inside the human being will also come out if the question is put in different forms. The openness, open mind, which we can call it as open mind. So he opens up the mind. So that is structured interview. Unstructured interview is one where there are no predetermined questions. Any order of the questions, and it is left to the interviewer to ask some questions in a way he likes regarding a number of key points around which the interview is to be built up. If he is a very good subject kind of driven candidate, interviewer, if he has a lot of subject, he doesn't require any set or predetermined questions. Am I right or wrong? There will be certain key issues on which the interview has to take place. In order to address those key issues, then he will use so many techniques within the interview, isn't it? So he need not come with a kind of a slip or a paper having questions and other things. It's not structured, and it should not be one after another question in the serial order of kind of questions, isn't it? There would not be any seriatim at all, and any question will also come at any place based on the interaction, isn't it? There will be linking, isn't it? On the base of the interaction, there will be linking questions. But it's all about when this gentleman has that much soundness with regard to the interviews and the subject. So there will be key issues on which the interview will take place. It will go around the key issues. Key issues. And we can also say interviewer can dig deeper. Interviewer can dig deeper. If we go into very minute things also to elicit information, dig deeper. That is possible in the unstructured interview till you get answer from that interviewee. So therefore, in order to elicit the information from the candidate in detailed way, fashion, he tried to dig deeper into the situation to get that information. What is required? So despite this, the unstructured interview has three important limitations. In an unstructured interview, there's a greater scope for personal influence and bias of the interviewer. Personal bias. An unstructured interview requires greater skill on the part of the interviewer than the structured interview. Structured interview doesn't require such much, adapt of the skill, because everything is predetermined there. Here, everything is not predetermined, but only key issues would be there. On that, there would be interaction. So therefore, in the unstructured interview, it requires greater skill on the part of the interviewer than the structured interview. The conduct of an unstructured interview requires that the interviewer be tactful, intelligent, and have a social sense, as well as a deeper knowledge of the subject matter. These are the qualities required by an interviewer when he wants to conduct the unstructured interview. But structured interview is little bit better. Everything is systemized there. Everything is structured there. The questions are also there. And at times, what is happening in the structured interviews is that he will also leak out the questions to the candidates who is coming for that interview, isn't it? So that he will come with so much of information. Suppose if there is no answer from the interview for that question, then that would be a babbling situation, especially in the political circles. If the minister is to be interviewed, if it doesn't come with that information, it looks awkward. So in that case, normally what they do is, some of course, the questions will also be sent to the interview so that he can come with preparation, then have that kind of interview. Okay, na? What, Ushasri garu? Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
Hmm?
Always
So,
professor is always right, sir.
right, next, advantage and disadvantage of interview. Interview as a research tool has both advantages, and like that, I think for every method has advantages and disadvantages. Similarly, this interview method has also advantage, disadvantage. Just now we have seen the limitations of the unstructured interview also, isn't it? So interview allows greater flexibility in the process of questioning. As such, many types of probe questions can be put and analyzed. But time limitation would also be there. That is the limitation. The interview is about only 45 minutes. During that duration only you have to finish your interview. So then you have to prepare or keep in mind the time and also your questions. Then what would be the possible time that the interview can take to answer? All these things have to be bear in mind. By that way, the interview has to be conducted. It facilitates the investigator in obtaining the desired information readily and quickly. The interview is desired level of control can be exercised over the situation or context within which questions are asked and answers are given. So there should also be some kind of control. So the validity of the verbal information given by the interviewees can easily be checked on the basis of their non-verbal cues. That can also be checked whether it is reliable or not reliable, isn't it? Still, the interview is not without limitation or problems. With all the advantages of this, still there are certain limitations. The major disadvantages are interviewers variability. Interviewers variability. It is commonly found that at times the interviewers views similar response differently and records them differently from interview to interview. If this gentleman is given so many interviews in a day, am I right? Huh? There will be some difficulty for this interviewer also to concentrate or focus on that. So therefore, what is happening is this, when the variation from one interview to the another interview, then it's a question of recording also. So interviewer views similar responses differently. His views would be differ. Interviewers' views would be at times different from one interview to the another interview. They may not be stable, constant. It varies. The views of the interviewer will vary from one interview to the another interview. Next disadvantage is that interviewer variability. Interviewer variability. Interviewer variability. When several interviews are used in a study and the nature of interview is unstructured, the interviewers vary considerably among themselves in their respective abilities. If there are many interviewers working for data collection, they vary differently because individual differences are there. Some of them may be skilled, some of them may not be skilled also. How to conduct the interviews? Some of them will be intelligent and some of them may not be that much intelligent also. So therefore, when you are engaging so many interviewers to elicit information from the people, then it varies, which we can call it as interviewer variability. It varies because the persons are different, the interviewers are different. Am I right or wrong?
Sometimes the answers of the interviewer also will impact on the thought
Yes,
process,
yes.
so that might change.
Not only that, even if there is any difficult or hard times at home, you will also carry all those things to the interview. There would be some kind of mind gabra also. Am I right? If the interview is to be systematized and successful, he should be away from all these personal problems. He had to shed all these things. And the peace, the tranquility, the pleasantness, all these things are required on the part of the interviewer. If there was any fight in the house or home, that fight will also come into the picture. It will affect the interview process because it may be ringing in their minds, that fight. Am I right? So that is the kind of things that will also happen in the interviews. That's the reason why the responses may not be that much accurate. Validity and dependability of verbal responses. So validity means what it purposed to measure, what it's supposed to measure, what is supposed to be elicited, that should come out. What is that is expected should come out from the interview. If that doesn't come out, that interview lacks in validity. What it purposed to measure, what it's supposed to measure, what is expected, that has to measure only, not the other things. When you are talking about anxiety, the interview should go only on the anxiety, on those issues related to anxiety. But he should not bring out other issue into the picture. So therefore, validity and dependability of verbal responses. In interview, the interviews verbally answer the question asked by the interviewers. Social scientists have grave doubts whether a person actually behaves the way he professes to behave. This is the problem. Actual behavior will be something, and when he comes to the interview, during that time, his behavior would be something different. So he may not be having the same behavior. So that indicates the validity may be lacking. It may not be there. They have expressed the concern that verbal responses can't be relied upon with a considerable degree of validity and dependability. You cannot depend completely on the answers of the interviewee. He did not come out completely with open mind. So some of the things are not revealed. They are not disclosed. They are not properly presented. Okay, na? Some of them ignored. So therefore, it lacks the validity and dependability. You cannot rely or depend on the responses of the interviewees. The time factor is also one of the disadvantages. The interview takes much time. Completion, because each respondent or interview is interviewed individually, and the records of the verbal interaction of each respondent for curtailing the time taken unnecessarily in recording by the interviewers. I don't know. If I am interviewer, what I do is I record. There may be recording process, isn't it? Nowadays it's very easy. Of course, olden days there will be somebody who has to record all the responses with a hand. In olden days where there was no facility at all, we used to record using tape recorder also. As a researcher, we used to record using the tape recorder during our times, the opinions of the people. We used to carry the tape recorder with us. Because we may also forget. We cannot record all these things when the interview is in progress. Some of them we can forget. Isn't it? So therefore, these are the certain things which you have to keep in mind, isn't it? So therefore, there may not be time because you may be taking so much of time for recording purposes also, even for arrangement also, seeing other things whether they're okay or not okay. The time factor is also very important. That may also becomes hurdle for good interviews. Variations inherent in the interviewing context. Yes, the context is also supposed to be very good, very congenial, encouraging, cooperative. The context, the place in which the interview is taking place, that room that is meant for this purpose. So that should also be a congenial, a pleasant, encouraging kind of thing. Such things may not be there in some of the cases. context of the interview itself becomes a variable which must be accounted for in assessing the findings from studies that utilize interview as one of the important research tools. So therefore, in which context that you are interviewing. So it will also vary at times. Your responses will also vary according to the context. If there's a good context, very congenial, then welcoming, then pleasant, very peaceful, I think you can also give answers to all the questions with the whole heart, with the whole heart. So the context is such kind of thing which will also encourage, but the context is not good, not congenial, not peaceful, not welcoming, then automatically some of the things may not come out in the interview. The responses may not be real also at times. Recording information. How to record information being given by the interviewee is also a problem in interviewing. No full proof system of recording has yet been worked out to everybody's satisfaction. So I think everybody is to be satisfied. There is a question, $1,000 question with regard to the recordings of the interview. So therefore, some of these things may be missed out, and how to come with the conclusions would also be very difficult with the recordings that are done by the interviewer during the time of this interview. These are the various disadvantages that have come across when you talk about the interview. Then important sources of errors in interviews. What are the various sources? Of course, these are the disadvantages. Let us try to understand the sources of errors. If anything that is occurring, a mistake, it has come through which, from where it has come. Let us try to see the root cause of these errors in the interviews. The first one is attitude of the interviewer. I think we have discussed a lot about this, is the attitude. There would be some interview who will be hurting the feelings of the interviewee also. They will insult also at times. They try to put him in problems also. You are interviewing the candidate not to puzzle him. You are just interviewing the candidate for eliciting the information related to the topic that is under study. So therefore, attitude of the interviewer is that one major source of error in interview is the attitude of the interviewers itself. Sometimes the interviewers carry a definite attitude and bias towards the favorability or unfavorability of the respondents or interviewers. Most of the cases this is happening. Especially nowadays, I'm talking about the TV interviews. All these TV channels, they are supporting one or the other parties, and they try to seek information in favor of that particular party. That's the bias. But here in this, especially when there is a research problem, that kind of bias should not be there. So he is not supposed to express that kind of bias. The interviewer is not supposed to have that kind of bias towards or favoritism towards certain issues. So that is the attitude of the interviewer. This is unnecessarily creates problem in the sources of interviewing. So I think attitude of the interviewer should be, is a neutral candidate. Neutral. He is not supporter of any party, nor favorable to any party, nor favorable to any issue, nor favorable to any person. Incomprehensibility of the questions asked. There are certain interviewers whose questions are not meaningful. The questions may be lacking the proper understanding. So if you use such kind of questions, then that will also lead to some error in the interview. Questions should be meaningful, pregnant with meaning. The questions should possess the pregnant, or it should be pregnant with meaning. Then lack of warmth in the situation of the interview. Yes, Gordon is of opinion that when the interviewers don't exhibit affectionate and warm relationship with the interviews and instead exhibit unfriendly and curt behavior, the interviews naturally don't cooperate with the interviewers. if there is no warm, it should be very, very warm. Otherwise, the interviewee cannot cooperate. If you express or exhibit unfriendliness or curtailing behavior, you stop him unnecessarily. I think you might have observed all these things in the interviews also. If anything is going not in favor of this particular candidate, you try to cut it, the opinion of that person. So that would also be there. And lack of motivation in respondents. Yes, there should also be motivation to act and react to the questions. That way you have to bring that person to readiness to answer your questions. Motivation is very, very important. Otherwise, it would be very, very passive. The interview would be very passive unless the interviewee is motivated. So the duty of the interviewer is to motivate the interviewee. Then the duration of interview. Sometimes the duration of interview is unnecessarily long, causing and the interviews feel nervous and monotonous. As such, the information given by them remains no longer dependable, and the interviews tend to arrive at erroneous conclusions. These are the various sources of errors in the interviews, starting from the attitude, not having comprehension in questions, lack of warmness, also no lack of motivation, respondents, and also duration. These are the what shall we say, root causes which are responsible for the errors in the interview. Then selection of the training of interviewers. Then interviewers should also be trained, honesty and the accuracy, adaptability, interest, and temperament. In all these aspects, the interviewers ought to be trained. Generally, they should be put in operation. Till that time, they are supposed to be assistants. They are supposed to be the observers. They are supposed to be the learners. So therefore, any training is to be given to the interviewers. For successful interview, you have to train them. The interviewers should be honest and the information should be accurate in recording and also adaptable to the situation. Then you should also generate interest and also his temperament or his attitude. That's very important. Tantrums should not be there. So these are the various issues that are connected with the interview. And if these things are taken care of by the researcher, then you will be getting valid information from the respondents. These can be used in the research when the sample is very, very less, that too on specific issues. And if the size of the sample is heavy, then automatically it will be very difficult to get the response from the sample of 400 or 300 or 500, isn't it? So if it is 10% or 20% or something else like that, I think you can have very good interview with them. Otherwise, if the number goes up, then it will be very difficult for the researcher. He cannot control, he cannot manage, he cannot spend his time, and you'll be ending up with only conducting interviews, and later part of the research will be going out from the scene. So therefore, it all depends on the various issues and research problems, especially psychological problems. I think you can also have this kind of, most of the cases for the psychological issues, interview is the best method. Isn't it? Interview is the best method for those people who are having these psychotic disorders. That's all about this. Now let us switch over to the next unit. Any questions?
No, sir.
Any questions from your side? It seems you are the only person on the screen. Sri, any questions with regard to this interview?
No, sir. It's very clear.
This is going to be important question that will also appear in the examination too, because most of the part, of course, you see only on the interview. because that is that is discussed at length. So I think you should also take care of this. It may also appear as essay question in the examination. Yeah, telephonic interviews it should also be there. There are various interviews from Sudesh to everyone. Yeah, some of your friends, one of your friends is also talking about telephonic interviews. Yeah, nowadays that is also happening. Telephonic interviews.
Sir, is there any questionnaire given by Gordon, sir, according to Gordon, 1960?
He might have used that. Then only he said. I thought without using that he cannot say.
Means, can we
Experience.
find this tool, sir? This research tool online?
It may be. You have to search in the net, internet available. If it is available in the internet, you can search it. Then you can. It's not. Don't go by the Gordon some other. You can develop your own tool. You can find only the guide how to develop the interview. Guidelines would be there. That Gordon might have given the guidelines. Although you might have developed a tool and then you might have experienced so many things, isn't it?
Yes.
It may be available in the net or it may not be available in the net. Whatever, he developed the principles of the interview. You should follow it, then prepare your own kind of, interview, then arrange it. But it should be based on the subject only. Suppose if you ask the fellow who is not subject oriented, you are getting zero response from him. Huh? A question which is to be asked to a doctor, if he is question to an engineer, can he answer that question? Huh? You cannot put that engineer in the interview. You are supposed to put only the doctor. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
So therefore, don't bring a wrong person to the interview also. Just for the sake of interview and then other things, please don't put the wrong persons. Whoever has the subject, who is expert in that area, those people should only be invited for the interview who can leave their opinions or their perceptions. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now let us move into the next unit, that is Unit 18, which is concerned with questionnaire and focus group technique. Questionnaire. What is this questionnaire? Questions and nail. Questionnaire means a list which is containing the questions. Right? List of questions.
Yes, sir.
List of questions is a questionnaire. That means the questions related to the subject will be seen in that list. So a list that will be containing the questions, we can call it as questionnaire. So therefore, I think there are so many techniques for collecting the data methods, and this is another method for collecting the data. And most of the cases you find questionnaires nowadays, especially the survey research. Survey research means then you have to collect the data through some forms or through questionnaires.
Our exam paper is also a questionnaire, sir.
What?
Our exam papers also, it's a data collection. How students understood, how much they are able to recollect and reproduce.
That is also a question because there are questions in the test paper, isn't it? But when it comes to the research I'm talking about, when you want to develop a tool, tools are, of course, interviews are also a tool to my knowledge, observation is also a tool to my knowledge, and also the questionnaire is also a tool through which you are collecting the data. Your achievement test is also a tool. Hello, ma'am. That you are talking about, I think. Your achievement test is also a tool through which you are trying to measure the achievement of the students in a particular subject. So any question paper that is given to you, especially psychology, your examinations, that is also achievement test, which is conducted at the end of the course. So that is also one of the tools that will also, of course, included here. We can also come to that particular point whenever the point comes there. Okay, na? Yes. Therefore, the questionnaire is that one which contains questions and the respondent has to answer. The respondent has to answer those questions. So therefore, here the respondent, the client, then the target, then the sample, and the participants. These are the various synonyms that we can use. Target, clients, participants, subjects, respondents. You are supposed to use all these things, madam. Then only we can say you are having abundant knowledge with regard to vocabulary. Don't use all the time the same thing. Huh? Also, it's not only for Usasri, it's also for everybody who is watching this. Are they watching or listening to me?
They are listening, sir.
Is it? You are
They are
answering, but
listening.
what about others? I'm not getting
They
any
are
response
listening
from
and
them.
understanding.
Watching and listening.
Oh, that's good. Very
Listening,
nice.
sir. Watching and listening, sir.
Oh, you are intelligent people.
Yes, we are watching and listening to you, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, that question is now, if somebody else is watching and listening, sir, very nice. Yes, type of questions. Question is, one is closed-ended questionnaire, the other one is open-ended questionnaire. Rama Sita Gadiraju. Rama Sita Gadiraju.
I'm here.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
your name is on the screen. That's why I'm asking.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, sir.
there are two types of questionnaires. One is closed-ended questionnaire. The other is open-ended questionnaire. Closed-ended questionnaire means it is closed with a word, with a single word answer, isn't it? All your multiple type of questions, true or not true questions, or yes or no questions, all these things will come under closed-ended questionnaires. That means the end is closed. You cannot go beyond that. You have to say yes or no. That much only. Okay, na? We can also call them as dichotomous or saturated type questions. Those questions which are to be answered in the form of yes or no, or true or false, or multiple type of questions, because the end is closed. With one word only you have to say. So therefore we can call them as dichotomous. Dichotomous. Either this or that. Yes or no, true or false. Those things will come under dichotomous or saturated type questions. Saturated, completely over. With that only you have to search for yourself. And whatever you want to wish to write, you are not supposed to be admitted or allowed. But you have to choose either that or this, either yes or no, or whether it's true or false. And there is no alternative at all, because the end is closed. Beyond that, you cannot continue to answer. Okay, now? Closed-ended questions limit respondents' answers to the survey. The participants are allowed to choose from either a pre-existing set of dichotomous answers, such as yes or no, true or false, or multiple choice with an option for other to be filled in, or ranking scale response options. Even the scales also for which you are supposed to give the ranking. Within the given ranks only you have to choose one alternative, not all the ranks. Isn't it? So therefore, you are supposed to answer very intelligently in the form of yes or no, true or false, or multiple choice type, or other option. And in the scaling for ranking purposes also, there is no option of going beyond that one. Within these things only you have to rank. So such kind of questions will come under closed-ended questionnaires. The advantages of closed-ended questionnaires are closed-ended questions are more easily analyzed. Every answer can be given a number or value so that a statistical interpretation can be assessed. This is the advantage. When the response is valued with a number, or with some kind of weight or a numerical, then when that is quantified, then there is a possibility of using statistical tests. When the response is valued with a numerical or when it is quantified, then the possibility of using statistical techniques. There is a possibility of using statistical techniques. So that is the advantage of all these things, isn't it? Closed-ended questions can be more specific also. They're more likely to communicate similar meanings to all. Large-scale surveys, closed-ended questions take less time from the interviewer, the participant and the researcher, and so they're less expensive survey method, especially in the surveys. If you want to gather the data from a large sample, you can use these kind of closed-ended questionnaires. And your surveys, your census surveys, yes or no, or I think such kind of answers will be given, and beyond that you cannot do in the surveys. Am I right? Especially census surveys, how many people are there? It may be one or two. Huh?
Only such kind of surveys only people would like to do so. If it is like open-end questions, they have to write paragraphs. Uh, the subjects may step back.
But
So it's
here,
always better to have a closed-end questions
uh,
during the survey.
yes, you are right, Madam Ussasri, but the problem is with the closely ended questions may be interesting, very easy also. Without looking at the question also, you can put the tick mark without reading also. There are such kind of fellows. I have seen such fellows without reading the question also, they put it. And there would be choice also. In the examinations, your NEET examinations or your MSET, the papers, some of them, chance factor is also there. If the answer is not known to the candidate, there may be luck factor. He may put that and it may get right. So that is one of the limitations in the multiple choice type questions. That chance factor. Am I right or wrong? And there are people who got marks also out of that, whose
But
rank also
multiple
gone up.
choice question always it's a kind of recollection. Means the moment you see, we can remember it.
Yes. Hello. Therefore, here what I'm talking is, they may be interested in these forms of questions, but you cannot get complete picture. That's the problem. Because you are restricted. Your answer is restricted. You are restricting the candidate to use his mind. That is the disadvantage of all these closed-ended questionnaires. Next one is open-ended questionnaire. And the end is open. You can write as many pages as possible in the examination. After seeing all these things, now they have restricted your answer sheet only up to 20 pages. Am I right?
Yeah, 24, sir.
There would not be any extra pages also. Extra sheets will not be given.
No, sir.
Because you used to write something other than what is required. Just for the sake of the weight of the answer sheet. So that you will get good marks. Just by seeing the weight of the answer sheet, people will also regularly give the marks. So instead of giving the right answer, and there's a scope of giving so much of information which is not required also. Subjectivity would be more. Subjectivity. That is the major disadvantage of this open-end questions. It's a time-taking process also. And it will be very difficult for valuing also. That response, how to convert that response into numerical terms would be difficult. To be quantified would also be difficult. So you cannot use, if there is no quantification, the statistical techniques you cannot use. So these are the various disadvantages, and subjectivity would also be there. And it's also time-taking process, and they will also lose interest, as you said. If somebody is also in closed-ended questions, familiarity with the topic is dead. For example, in multiple choice questions, familiarity. Okay, all these things, problems and limitations would also be there. Most of the cases you find subjectivity, and it would be very difficult to convert them into or quantified kind of thing, or quantification may be very difficult. Then automatically, when there is no quantification, there would not be any application of statistical techniques. But it will, the respondents will come out with so much information. Here he is not restricted, because if it is right, response is right, if he writes so much, then the detailed information you are getting with the help of this open-ended questionnaire, but it's a time-taking process. Yes, that luck factor. Yes, certainly luck factor in the, what shall we say, in that, yeah,
Multiple choice questions.
yeah, multiple choice type, or
Closed-end questions.
all those things are there. Yeah. So there are certain limitations and advantages too. So if the only advantage to with this, open-ended question is that you get so much of information and you are giving freedom so that you come out. But subjectivity is a disadvantage, and what is expected, it may not come at times also. It's a time-taking process, and converting the responses into numericals would also be a difficult task in the this open-ended question is. Question is used in psychological research. Now we are coming to this. Your psychological research, and what kind of questions that you are going to use? Could you please mention some of the tools which you can use in psychological research?
Closed-end questionnaire we have to use, sir.
You have to use. Are there any questionnaires or the tools that you have used earlier? You have done some kind of practical work, isn't it? You might use some scales also. I have not done that in your practicals.
We
For
did
Actually,
measuring
It may-
ADHD,
yeah, for measuring purposes, there may be some scales which are
yeah.
also used by you.
ADHD tool,
Yes.
and
It may be
autism
anxiety,
scale.
it may be anger, it may be
Stress.
aggressiveness, it may be stress. Like
Yes.
this, I think there are certain skills which are already developed.
Yeah.
We can
Yes.
call them as tools also. So this psychological research, mostly commonly used questionnaire in psychological research are psychological tests. Psychological tests have been devised and are used primarily for the determination and analysis of individual differences in general intelligence, specific aptitudes, educational achievement, vocational fitness, and non-intellectual personality traits. So these are the various areas in which you are going to use psychological tests. Apart from this, tests also have long been used for a variety of psychological, educational, cultural, sociological, and employment studies of groups, rather than for the study of a particular individual. So most of the cases, my dear friends, Dina ji is on the, her name is on the screen. Dina ji, normally what we are doing nowadays is, especially the researchers, most of the people are just using only the tests or the scales. That too already developed and standardized tools.
Because the standardized tools are already tested and norms are set, and it is there is reliability and validity. No, sir. If we develop our own things, I don't think we can arrive at the outcomes that we are looking for in the research.
Is it Dina ji speaking?
Yes, sir. Dina.
Dina, yeah, Dina ji, my answer is, if you are a researcher, maybe doing PhD, I think you may also do it for the future.
Yeah.
You are supposed to have the ability to develop the tool on your own. Then only you will be a researcher. You should know the procedure thoroughly. You should know the procedure thoroughly. How to develop the tool, how to standardize the tool. Otherwise, you cannot become a researcher, good researcher. It is applicable to each and everybody present here. After this MSc course, some of you may go for PhD course. All the tools are developed by laboratories or individuals which are standardized. But your knowledge, how far you are going to use that knowledge, what you learned during your research methodology and develop the tool, that is important for me. Am I right?
Excellent, sir.
Yes,
But it
sir.
is
That way
very
you have to come up. That way you have to come up. It's not that somebody has developed and standardized the tool that you are using or adapting it. But your tools should be adopted by somebody that shows your greatness. Am I right? You are Dina? You are Dina?
difficult, sir.
No. It's not difficult. You have to
I
try out.
understand, but it's yeah, that much of determination
I
I think
cannot
each
say that
researcher
it's
should have.
wrong. I cannot say it's wrong adopting the tools which are already developed. But we should also test our own knowledge. Suppose you will also get the chance of, guiding
Right,
the
sir.
researchers. If you want to guide the researchers, you may become guide to the researchers of PhD. Then if you do not know how to develop the tool and then standardize the tool, it will be very difficult also, isn't it? You have to guide
Yes.
means you should have that kind of knowledge also. But anyway, whatever you that should do, I am accepting, agreeing to the point that you can also use already available tools. But it's a test for your knowledge. Shall we?
Yes.
If any challenging questionnaires, we have to develop tools, we have to develop which is not already existing, then we might get a chance to develop. But there are so many great scientists who have already done. They have given lengthy pieces. They have proved their analysis. So they did not leave anything much for us. Until we get any kind of challenging situation which can challenge their
Developing the
test.
tool itself is a challenging task. Again, I'm telling you, the crux of the whole research is developing the tool and standardizing it. That will test your whole knowledge. Other things are very easy. You have to establish the validity. You have to establish the reliability of the tool. These are all challenges. If once these things are known by a researcher, other things are very easy for you. They may not be that much challenging. But the challenging task is how to develop the tool, how to standardize the tool, how to use it, how to collect the data, and how to interpret the data by analyzing. That's all about. Okay, now let us try to understand some of the tools which are given in psychological research. Number one is intelligence tests, which are already developed. This is very big task. Again, I'm telling you, this is challenging task also. Developing personality tests, intelligence tests. It will require a lot of time also because you have to consider various factors. There are people who worked for about 30 years to develop a tool on personality. 30 years they work to come up with a tool because that's the only job for them. But that is not the only job for you because you are a mother, you are a sister, you are a wife, and again other children also there. There are many jobs that are there along with this also. Therefore, you cannot spend that much time for developing the tool for 30 years. Huh? So therefore,
But
normally,
despite they have spent so many years and they have developed a tool, they still face a criticism, challenging, and new upcoming
again, yes,
people has
exactly,
come up.
madam.
So one
Even
more
exactly,
people.
Ushasri, there are people like Einstein got criticism about his theory. People are questioning his theory nowadays. Huh? Every theory would also be carrying the errors. That is not complete. Every theory is not complete. So every tool is not complete. So any research is not complete also.
So we do have a chance to develop and
Yes.
continue that research.
Next one is aptitude test. Aptitude test is a combination of characteristics indicative of an individual's capacity to acquire some specific knowledge, skill, or set of organized responses. These tests will be used during the time of recruitments also by the industries. Aptitude tests. They try to understand their specific abilities. So using these kind of tests, aptitude tests, they administer the aptitude test to understand their specific skills, and that is possible through administering aptitude tests. Then again, achievement tests. here comes the question of Ushasriji. You asked about the achievement test, your psychology examination test paper. Here also comes. Achievement test measures the present proficiency, mastery, and understanding of general and specific areas of knowledge. For the most part, they are measures of the effectiveness of instruction and learning. They are important in education and education research. Hello. Again to all the friends. If you are getting less marks means that is not your fault. That is the fault of your mentor also. The fellow who taught that subject is also responsible to some extent. If you get less marks in research methodology means you can also attribute minimum 30% of that result to the person who handled the paper. Krishna Reddy is responsible if you get less marks in this particular paper. So I cannot attribute everything to the student because I did not deliver my goods properly. So therefore, teacher's effectiveness is also one of the variables which will also come into the force when we talk about the achievements. It also depends on many factors. The classroom situation, the teaching, the body language, and also subjective kind of thing. Also, the school, the classroom, the materials that are used, the cooperation of the parents, and also home environment. All these things put together we have to study whenever we talk about achievement. So you cannot say teachers are responsible for each and everything for less marks. Okay? They should not be blamed. And I was also telling the same thing. We are not responsible 100%. We are responsible up to only 25%. Rest of the 75% is with the parents, with the home environment, with the friends, etc. and etc. After all, the students are with us for about 8 hours. Rest of the time they are with the family, with the parents. If the parents ignore the children, then that is their fault. Next one is personality traits. The term personality refers to the total function of an individual who interact with the environment. So personality means the ability to interact with the environment is personality. So there are many things which are included in personality. Out of that, try to understand 5 the classified things. The first one is assess the traits, specified traits. For example, ascendance, conservation, self-confidence. The second one is evaluate adjustment to several aspects of the environment, home environment, school environment, community. So when you want to assess the personality of the child, how is he able to adjust with all these things? That you have to assess. The next one is classify into clinical groups, paranoid, psychopathic personalities. Then screen persons into 2 or 3 groups, psychosomatic disorders versus normal. We should also assess these things. Also evaluate interests, values, and attitudes of the persons. And all these 5 components put together, you are trying to assess the personality, which you can call them as personality inventories. All the items related to these 5 areas are to be included in the tool, which we can call it as personality inventory. Right? Sometimes we're also using the battery of tests. Battery of tests. Whenever you talk about the aptitude test, there you are using battery of tests. We can call them as battery of tests also. Multiple aptitude tests and a special aptitude tests also there. So instead of using that multiple aptitude and special aptitude tests, multiple aptitude tests are those which intend to measure several aptitudes, each by an independent subtest. Then multiple aptitude tests are not tests, but rather batteries of tests. So multiple traits or aptitudes. For each aptitude, you have to use separate subtest. And all these subtests put together, it becomes multiple aptitude test, or otherwise you can call it as battery of tests. You have to use this term. So whenever you talk about aptitude test, you are supposed to use battery of tests. Okay. So the other things is attitude test, attitude no pretty. So what is your attitude towards the present examination system? Is it good or bad? Open book system, is it good or bad? Or otherwise, without book system, is it good or bad?
Open book system.
Yeah, that it may be good. I think here, the test developer is supposed to be very intelligent. He should have very critical mind also. Otherwise, as to the questions should not be given, isn't it? Almost analytical, critical, all those questions should be there. So the test paper developers should have such kind of mind. Otherwise, it would not be, it's a sheer waste also. Therefore, of course, in other countries, they're talking about open book system. They can sit in their residences and then they can send it through online also, that answer sheets. There's
So
open book system.
we do have our assignments are a kind of an open book. We will be assisted.
Good, it's very nice. So an attitude is a tendency to react favorably or unfavorably towards a designated class of stimuli, such as a national or ethnic group or a custom or an institution. So what is your attitude to nowadays the dressing system, the eating habits? What is your opinion on these things? So if you want to know all these things, that you have to use attitude test. What is their attitude towards all these things? It may be customs, or it may be institution, or it may be some kind of ethnic groups, or towards a nation. So what is their attitude? The attitude of the people, the attitude of the students towards homework, the attitude of the students towards their subject. This has to be assessed first. Those students who do not have even interest in a particular subject, they are taking admission into it. This is also happening. Say, for example, some of the students are coming into the B.Ed program. Their interest is something else. Out of interest or without interest, still they are able to come to this stream. That is wrong kind of method. All right? Those people who have, interest in teaching profession towards teaching profession, they should only take admission into such courses. The person who doesn't have interest at all, if he comes to this, then there would be some kind of difficulty for the gentleman, because he cannot evince interest at all in that subject. And there are students who prefer, especially engineering side, they prefer computer, but they get admission into ECE. It's also some kind of difficulty. So I think such kind of things are all there. Before taking admission, we should also understand their attitude towards a particular subject also, if it is the student who is supposed to take admission into a particular stream also. Isn't it? So their interest towards a subject, that's very important. That is related to success also. So
But at the same time, they should see whether that is good for their career, future, or what it is. If they are interested, they can develop as a hobby or learn something, but not as a career point of view. If that particular subject has no future, then no. As a parents nowadays, they are not encouraging.
You are right, Ushashri. Attitude, they are not permanent. They change according to the time, context. They change according to, by listening to the lectures like Dr. Krishna Reddy. That's not boosting myself, I'm sorry. Or listen to the lecture of Ushashri also. They will change their attitude.
It's a fact, sir.
Whether it's a fact or not fact, by listening to the lecture of Ushasri Garu, I think they will also change their attitude. Earlier, the attitude not in favor of this. Hey, she is going back. Yeah. These are all certain things which you should also consider. Then what's the advantages of and disadvantages of questionnaires or the tools that we just discussed? The research is able to contact a large number of people quickly, easily and efficiently using a postal questionnaire also. Earlier, we used to post our questionnaires. But you don't expect that 100 questionnaires which you posted will come back. Some of those people will not it. And what we do is, we can also put self-addressed recover, envelope recover. During our time where there was no facility at all. And if the candidate is away from this place, so then what we do is we get the address of that fellow, take the address, then we post the questionnaire to that fellow by putting not only the questionnaire, also envelope stamp, what shall we say, the cover with envelopes. అరటిపండు తీసి తొక్క తీసి ఒక నోట్లో పెడతాం చూసారా, that's what we did during our time. Even then they did not answer at times. By that way, out of 100, and only 25% of the questions may be returned. This would be the situation during our time. But nowadays, there are so many facilities that are available to the research scholars. The libraries, everybody forgot the libraries today. Nobody is using the libraries. As long as the smartphone is with you, then it will be easy for you. Okay, isn't it? Everything is available in that.
E-library.
Yeah. Then these are the various things. And now let us go to this. I think my time is going up. Just 10 minutes. Let us finish this unit also. Yes, focus group technique. Next one is focus group technique. And the question is, of course, the advantage. You can also go through this and then the disadvantages and other advantages. It's not a big thing. Especially I can highlight the disadvantage of the question is that it makes it difficult for the researcher to examine the complex issues and opinions. Even where open-ended questions are used, the depth of the answer that the respondent can provide tended to be more limited than with almost any other method of research. This makes it difficult for a researcher to gather information that's rich in depth and detail. That is the disadvantage of this open-ended questionnaires. You might have come with so much of information. How to understand that one is a little bit difficult for the researchers. So this is one of the disadvantages of it. And then other things you can also go through it. Then you can understand them. Last one is focus group technique. Focus group technique. Most of the cases, this focus group technique will be used by the sociologists. Also, it can be used by the psychologists too. If there are a bunch of the students who are suffering with anxiety, you can call all those fellows to a classroom, the fellows who are suffering with anxiety, because similar problems. Then you can ask each and every student who is having this kind of problem. Then what would be the reasons for that? You try to come up with some kind of conclusions. That means focus groups means they will be focusing their problem to the person, to a researcher. So I think those people who will focus their problems, that group which focuses is a focus group. In sociology, of course, there are so many social problems. The girl-child education is a problem. The drainage is a problem. Health issues is also a problem. And again, there are other factors in the villages. Drainage is a problem. Not having the drainage system, proper drainage system. Even not having the drinking water facility is a problem. So for this purpose, what they have to do is, those people who are having all these problems should come to a particular place. There they have to move all these issues before the researcher. And here the person has to just, facilitate. The researcher has to facilitate such kind of group interviews. Isn't it? So for that purpose, he has to develop the group also. The focus group guide is a series of questions. There should also be a guide how to form a group, focus group, facilitated to use the facilitator who is going to form that groups. He has to go through that particular guide which is developed for that purpose, understand that one guidelines, then form a group, then bring them to a particular place, the date, the time, and the place. All these things will be informed, and they have to come to that place. Then they have to pose all these problems to the interviewer, and here the researcher is a facilitator. He is only a facilitator, and all these people will be participating in that group activity kind of thing. So select the number and type of participants for each group. This should not be a much larger group, very limited group only. So if you want to conduct a focus group, you will need a facilitator, note taker, and a technician also. Technician is meant for who will be arranging all those things, who will be videographing also. Even cameraman is also a technician. When the focus group interviews are taking place, everything will be recorded. Then the facilitator guides the group through the discussion, keeps the group focused on the topics for discussion. The note taker is an observer and does not interact with the group. His duty is only to take the notes. He is not supposed to interfere in the matters. It is between the researcher and the group participants. Focus group can be conducted in a person or via teleconference also. Focus group typically lasts about 60 to 90 minutes. 60 to 90 minutes only. Try to get as much information as possible during that time only. Then advantage results of these focus groups. Focus groups are very quick and relatively easy to set up. Focus group technique. The group dynamic can provide useful information that individual data collection does not provide. Individual data collection is not individual data collection. Focus group technique, the group dynamics can provide useful information. This is not individual information. That's information of that group. Focus group is useful gaining insights into a topic that may be more difficult to gather through other data collection. Yes. To the questionnaires, you may not get the answers, clear picture. But focus group interviews are methods through which you can gather more and more information. We may also go in detail to the various issues. So disadvantages are those, they are susceptible to facilitator bias. Facilitator bias would also be there. Side tracking would also be there. Data analysis focus group is time consuming and needs to be well planned in advance. Focus group techniques does not provide valid information at the individual level. In focus group technique, the information is not representative of other groups. The information is about only that group who is facing this kind of interview or discussion. So this cannot be applied to other groups because a specific problem and the things related to that issue only be discussed there. So you cannot generalize all these things to the other groups. This is all about, especially the sociologists, social anthropologists, even psychologists can also use this focus group technique. Focus group techniques. Interview, we can also call it as focus group, is a group of interview of approximately 6 to 12 people who share similar characteristics or common interests. That's what I'm talking about. So focus group for a qualitative data collection method, meaning that the data is descriptive and cannot be measured numerically. Hello, madams. You cannot 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. You cannot give such kind of numericals for the response of that group. That is qualitative one. That is a description kind of thing. So here, the information that you are getting in the form of description, you are describing the issues.
But focus group is itself, it is describing. They are describing. They are selecting for certain. So how how it is different?
Description will come under qualitative. You are describing the qualities, describing the issues. There you are not going to give any kind of quantification. When there is a quantification, then only the other things will come. Analysis kind of thing, the statistical analysis and other things. When everything is described, it has to be noted. So qualitative research is always descriptive. Your case study is always descriptive. You are collecting as much information as possible. That's why it has become qualitative analysis.
Even in focus group also, we are particularly focusing on one group and we are describing and collecting the data. So they both
That
are not
data,
what I'm saying.
that data related to an issue.
But still it is a descriptive.
That only is descriptive only.
Okay.
Descriptive means qualitative only. You are describing it qualitatively, each and every aspect of that particular issue under discussion. So here you are not using any kind of quantification. This is qualitative kind of thing. There will be a group with 6 to 12 persons and a specific subject or issue to be there. Then the discussion would also be there. Then of course somebody should note down the proceedings. Some kind of technician should also be there to help you to bring all these people to a particular place. And it should also be knowledgeable. And the duty of this interviewer is only a facilitator, nothing else. He has to probe into various issues. Then the answer should come from them, but that should be understood as a group answer, not individual answer. This can also be used for your psychological research also. That's all about. Any questions from your side? I think almost we are nearing the time. It's all about, yeah, that's all about. Time is also over. 15. It's 1:15. Any questions from your side, friends? Dr. Saab, you are behind the screen. Dr. Nageswara Garu. Is he there? No. 21 members are there. Yeah, what's been? Any questions from your side, please? Hello. Hello. Are you there?
Along with me, Isha and Dina, they give
sir. Thank you,
equivalent questions.
Questions? What are those questions?
Means generally they participate and they
No
enhance
doubt,
the
sir.
questions.
Oh, from Saraswati to everyone. Okay. Tanuja, thank you, sir. Okay. Any questions? Any more? No.
So we still have only 2 more classes left, and I
Yes,
wanted to
maybe.
have a recap also of offline classes.
Which one?
Recap, a small recap of offline
It may not
classes.
be possible also. I think still there are about nearly 4 units are there. 4 units. I don't know how much time is available for recap and other things, no? That may
At
be the
least,
next Saturday and Sunday are the last sessions.
Yes,
sir.
sir.
There, please brief us with the other topics also, sir.
Yes, sir,
Just like
please.
If time
Umashri,
permits,
Usha's listening.
if time permits, we can discuss. Most of the things, you lost it when the offline classes were organized. All
Yes.
these
We
things were
couldn't
also,
attend the offline
so that's a
classes.
problem.
We don't stay in the same.
Yeah, some of these things are also repeated one. All these things we discussed earlier also in the offline classes. You missed out the thing. The problem is you missed it out. Anyway, it's all right, my dear friends. If time permits, you can also have that kind of recapitulation. Anyway, I think next Saturday and Sunday, we're going to say our bid goodbye to this online process related to research methodology of MSc Psychology second year.
Thank you, sir. I
Thank you,
request
Nagesh.
you
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
to give some questions which are concerned with examination point of view, sir,
Okay.
if
We can
possible.
see it. Yes, sure. Why not, sir?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Very
you.
much thankful to you.
Thank you.
Research way of methodology to us.
Thank you. That's all about this class. Sir, it is a request to conduct one session on overview of the entire syllabus. Many of us missed. I think you just take permission from your administrators. Is it possible to extend the class, one more class?
They say if sir is willing, we have no problem.
If that's the case, let that answer should come from them, horse mouth. But they have to pay 1,500 rupees for each session also, as they promised. Yeah, doesn't matter, please, not the money. It's all right. Thank you. If time permits, let us try to all those, have some kind of recap also. Otherwise, see, if time permits, we can also discuss many things. Okay?
Okay.
And for
Thank you.
today's, it's Krishna
Thank you,
Reddy
sir.
signing off.